we are already seeing wrongs that must be righted. For instance, I'm sure you've heard about it, but we're going to look into it deeper now, how the House Oversight Committee is now calling, and that's controlled by Republicans still, on the FEMA director to testify after those. I mean, it's almost so unbelievable. You're like, is this really true in the United States of America post a disaster, a natural disaster, that someone would actually put inside the do's and don'ts, the good practices of those who are going door to door to check on people, to make sure they had the resources that they need, to not engage one-on-one or personally with anyone who has pro-Trump signage in their yard. I mean, that would have been my house. That would have been probably a lot of our houses, especially that time of year. Avoid homes advertising Trump. So if you had a bumper sticker, if your car did survive that storm sitting out there, if you had a yard sign still surviving the storm, something that identified you as, don't bother those people. And Will, that means if you don't knock on their door, guess what they don't get? The resources that you have available to provide for them so that their family gets through what was a time where people didn't have power. Of course, the resources were low, water, food, and they were willing to deny the basics to fellow Americans because of who they told via free speech they were likely going to be voting for.
That's right. And we know that the Biden-Harris administration had been targeting conservatives for 4 years, whether that be the FBI or any of the other federal agencies, the Department of Justice, that were specifically going after conservatives. But here, in a time of crisis, you see an employee that was instructing those under her leadership to avoid homes advertising Trump. And even some of the surveys that they would turn in of, like, they put the address, what they did, they have to fill out their reports. There were many that had Trump sign, no contact per leadership. So it wasn't just something that was directed and then ignored. The employees that were going to make sure that victims of a natural disaster had the resources afforded to them by the federal government, they were being overlooked and rejected and discriminated against because of political affiliation. That should never happen in the United States of America. It's a big reason why Harris lost, is because of the bureaucracy doing things like this. And this is maybe a first for the Biden administration. They actually fired the person. Yeah. How many of these other bureaucrats that have been discriminating against conservatives still have their jobs today? Right.
So you look at FEMA, that's really the Department of Homeland Security. So whoever is nominated for that position knows that there needs to be a reckoning inside inside FEMA, specifically with those who go on the ground. And along with the investigation that's being done by Florida Governor DeSantis in the state of Florida, and the now announced investigation in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill. Listen, this should be done if it was people were told that they shouldn't go into a house with a Harris Waltz sign or any other political statement. We are all Americans. This was a disaster, and political signage should have been the last thing on their list. People didn't have water. They were trying to locate people to see if they were alive, their children's needs, and to provide that so that they knew what that person may need, or if that person was still in the home, or if they could somehow locate them and know that they were alive. And yet, for political purposes, they would just go past homes that were not, that were unmarked, that were marked in a incorrect or politically incorrect way for the FEMA regional supervisors. And they put this out as if, again, it'd be dangerous to offer assistance to someone in need because of their politics. And this, again, it goes to that bigger picture of the bureaucracy that this president is inheriting yet again. And we know, as we've said, listen, we have 18 current lawsuits against that bureaucracy and the Biden-Harris deep state. 18 of them at the ACLJ ongoing. Some of those will not be mooted out just because Donald Trump becomes president, because these take a long time to work through, even after you get a nominee finally confirmed and you get their top aides finally confirmed. Getting these bad actors out, we don't have the legislation yet that makes it very easy. So you've really got to prove some, in here, kind of serious bad action, almost bordering or on almost illegality. So dereliction of duty plus is like what I like to call it, leaking classified information, but not necessarily leaking unclassified information. That doesn't necessarily get them fired. It's all wrong. It needs to be reformed, but we also have to be prepared and help prepare the new administration for those shortfalls so that we don't have a Jim Comey 2.0. I mean, I think we can play it for everybody right now. Remember, Jim Comey said the entire crossfire hurricane, which led to the appointment of Mueller, got us involved with President Trump, and then to the first impeachment trial of President Trump. It all started in the first couple of days of the Trump White House. Don't take it from me. Take it from disgraced former FBI director Jim Comey.
You look at this White House now, and it's hard to imagine two FBI agents ending up in the same room. How did that happen?
I sent them. Something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe gotten away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration. If the FBI wanted to send agents into the White House itself to interview a senior official, you would work through the White House counsel, and there'd be discussions and approvals and who would be there. And I thought, it's early enough, let's just send a couple guys over.
So, I mean, there you go. We cannot let that happen again. And how do you not let that happen again? You got to make sure before you take, on January 20th, before you're taking the oath of office, you know exactly who is there at the White House ready to go, and that knows. You don't have to let FBI agents walk right in. You can say, who do you have an appointment with? Oh, you're not on our appointment book. You can then go to the White House counsel or other advisors and say, listen, these guys just showed up. No, you got to call us. You got to make an appointment. Is there some national emergency issue? We'll assist you in getting you to the right person. But we've been here. We are just getting started here. You know the rules. We know the rules. So get out of here and call us back, because you have to be. And that's not just for FBI. Anyone who starts showing like that up, from law enforcement. I know it sounds bad that you have to think that way as an incoming president, but we learned. President Trump learned. And to make sure anybody who gets a cabinet level position understands that as well. Don't just let them walk into the building. We also have to get their teams confirmed much quicker. And that's part of right now our Faith and Freedom Drive, because we also know that there are going to be major efforts to slow down the Trump nominees. It might not be all of them, but the more they can do. Imagine this. Ben Carson said, he got confirmed. He did not have his staff in place for 5 months because of the confirmation process. So for 5 months, you become a sitting duck for the bureaucracy, who can spend those 5 months trying to ruin you, leak stories about you, characterize who you are, demonize you, and of course, not carry out any of your actual policy directives that ultimately you and the president have signed off on. This is the major concern now, and I wanted to give people time to celebrate and to kind of breathe. But if we want to see success, major success in these next 4 years, we have to all be ready to fight together. We have to keep this unified front that got through the election unified on so many of these issues when the knives come out. And they will come out in Capitol Hill, and they will come out through the bureaucracy. So support the work of the ACLJ.